gosh, Ronnie Marmo. I'm so excited to have you. As I was
Thank-
telling you before I hit the record button, you've been in my eyes and ears for the morning. I was trying not to be too prepared for you, but I was like, I don't want to know nothing.
That's good. I think that's good. Thank you. I'm excited too. I'm happy to be here. So,
So I was watching the Chaz Palminteri YouTube. Well, it's a podcast, but it's also a YouTube show.
right.
And he said he's a friend of yours.
Yeah, Chaz is amazing. In fact, when we bought the house we're in now, I was in Chaz's living room when we finally pulled the trigger. We were just sitting there, Janelle and Chaz and I and his wife. And we were like, okay, Chaz, we're gonna do it. And so he's like, do it. I got a good feeling. So yeah, he's amazing. He's a great guy and his show's awesome and he gets great guests and he's really cool. He's a really cool guy, you know?
Yes, it seemed like you guys were bonding, and
Yeah,
uh,
I
and I
think
learned
so.
a bit about you. So we know each other from recovery circles, and then I should say, full disclosure, that you are also in business with my sister-in-law, who is
I
married to my
am.
brother. And so we hadn't seen each other in a while, and then she was saying, "Oh, my friend Ronnie, and we're business partners." And then I guess it was when I saw you, I was like, "Oh, the
Oh, Ronnie.
Ronnie,
Yeah. Well,
hello."
I don't know. Your sister-in-law is also referred to as my theater wife. So
Okay.
hopefully Michael doesn't get upset. He knows actually. Yeah, no. She and I are tied at the hip, and she's a ball of energy. I love her.
So, in my book, Drunkish, not to start by self-promoting,
Oh, you should. You should.
one of the early stories in my book, and my editor actually, if she had it her way, would have wanted me to absolutely start with this story, was Raquel doing a intervention on me. She was one of the only people, because you know how Raquel is. She can be a little in your face, right? So,
No, not my Raquel. She's the most gentle flower I've ever met. No, you know what? I hear where you're going, and I appreciate having friends like that. And there's only a few that will talk to you about the truth. It's really nice and
yeah.
refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, she came over one day when my twins were really little, and I was doing my drinking, my nightly wine, which was rolling back earlier and earlier in the day until it was, nightly, very
Starting.
loosely was like 3 in the afternoon, was like, let's break open a bottle of wine.
I know.
And then I was taking my Xanax every night, and my sister-in-law said, can I talk to you? I'm noticing that you're really checking out a lot, and I'm worried. And I was like, go fuck yourself. I didn't say that, but in my
I,
mind, I got real defensive, real hot, really like, wow, who does she think she is? I wrote all this in the book. It's no secret from her.
I guess we could curse on this podcast. Awesome.
We can curse on this
Great.
podcast.
Awesome. No, she's honestly, she's a good friend and she will tell you the truth, her truth, and
Yeah.
especially if she thinks you're in trouble. It's really, well, yeah, she's very special. And well, I'm glad she did that. And hopefully that kind of was a motivator for you to kind of take a hard look at things.
It wasn't, not at that time. But once I did take a look at things, I was very grateful to her for planting the seed.
Planting a
and
seed.
and and being somebody to be honest with me. Yeah, it was the first time I felt like, oh, somebody else notices this. I
Yeah.
didn't think anybody noticed. It was interesting. Now, your story, I want you to take me all the way back, because I understand
I
you
want to
got
keep
sober
interviewing
young.
you. I'm interested in your story. Let's keep interviewing you. I'm sure you've done that already, but
Yeah.
I got sober very young. I've never had a legal drink. I got sober. First time in rehab, I was about like 13 years old, and then I was
You
in and
wait, you
out.
went to rehab at 13?
Oh yeah,
Like Drew Barrymore.
I was a wild yeah, I was a wild kid. Just to give you a little, just so people go, oh, I got it. I got the picture.
Tell me.
Um, Born in Brooklyn, New York. Lived there till we were 6, moved to New Jersey, Central Jersey, which was about a half hour from Brooklyn. And we moved because my parents thought it would be a good idea to give us a better life in New Jersey, which is hysterical. But at that time, that made sense in their brain. And so at 11, my dad split. My mother went from being this little Italian housewife to working 3 jobs in 85 hours. So literally, I went from ultra supervision to none overnight. And suddenly I was, hanging on the street corner at 12 years old with the kids who were 16, getting all this info, because my brother was 16. So I was getting all this information from those guys. And then I would take it back to my 12-year-old friends and they'd be like, you're brilliant. How do you know all that? I was like a genius. Yeah. And so, and I quickly found what I was looking for in a bottle and drugs. I was just running right away, running the streets as a kid. And so I was in and out of trouble right away. I mean, right away. I got left back in seventh grade, dropped out of school in eighth grade, never went to high school. And
Never
I
went
st
back?
no, never went. And in fact, the other day I told my daughter and my wife, we were having dinner, and I said, I think I want to get my high school diploma. And they lit up. They're like, oh my God. And my daughter Rosie said, I'll help you. I'll help you. We'll have a graduation and everything. So I'm feeling pretty inspired to take a hard look at what that's going to look like. But I kind of want to do that. She said it would be inappropriate if I went to her high school. She's a junior, especially while she's there. But so that's it. So, and then I really was running the streets and, got arrested a whole bunch of times as a teenager and ended up
Like for what?
Uh, just, let's just say that I was dealing in pharmaceuticals. At age 13, age 14, maybe, I had a Corvette, a beautiful T-top Corvette. I didn't have a license until you're 17, but I had a Corvette and I used to park it around the block from my house.
So
And I
your
would
mom didn't know any of this?
well, on her deathbed, she died young, and on her deathbed, she said, "And don't think I didn't see the Corvette, you little son of a bitch." And then she died. So yeah, so she acted like she didn't know. My mother and I had this crazy relationship. We were, it wasn't inappropriate in that sense, of course, but inappropriate in that like we had our each other's back to the point where nobody could say anything about her boy. And it was she was wild and funny and so she really had my back, and so I was getting arrested for all kinds of stuff. My house got raided. I felt terrible. They ripped up my floorboards, my mother's house. They cut up all her couches. They ripped the ceiling down.
What?
Yeah, and
What exactly were you dealing? Like when you say pharmaceuticals,
I
like
was
pills,
well, no.
cocaine?
First, I eventually started to sell. First, I was selling pot, a whole bunch of pot. I had pounds of pot, pillowcases full of pot at 13 years old. And then I was supplying 9 towns, all of Woodbridge Township. And then all of a
Were your
sudden,
friends in it with you, or was this like
oh
your own
yeah, everybody.
operation?
No,
What about your
everybody.
brother?
Not really. My brother was interesting. Like he would get high a little bit here and there, but my brother was the kind of kid growing up that if I stole something from 7-Eleven, he would make me take it back and say I was sorry. So it was really yeah, it was kind of wild how we grew up very different, which is why I struggled with whether I was an alcoholic so young because and an addict because one day he just stopped doing it. And I was like, well, why can't I just stop doing it? So I eventually got sentenced to 2 months in this drug rehab. And I was 16. I turned 17 there. And I remember I got out and started going to meetings, and I was court ordered for a year to go to meetings. And I had a 4-year suspended sentence. I had a gun, and I was just out of my mind. I got in trouble with a lot of stuff. 11 accounts of assault. I was just remember those little New York Yankee baseball bats. I had this kid slept with my girlfriend in the high school, and so I went to the high school during the day, and I pulled him out of his classroom and gave him a couple of shots with the bat. And I didn't
You,
even go to school. I wasn't allowed. So I had all these charges, and I was in trouble.
what did it feel like in your head? Were you mostly kind of out of your mind when you did that stuff, or were you just an angry kid?
I think I was just lost, and I quickly saw the attention I got from those kinds of behaviors or whatever was, someone paying attention to me. I quickly in my neighborhood had like, I was the guy who was like, I had a lot of friends and everything was cool. And but I liked the way it felt when I was like, oh, Ronnie, this and that. And so, like I said, my mom was working 3 jobs. So I didn't see her. And so
What
it was
about
pretty
your
wild.
dad? Was your dad he was just completely out of the picture?
Yeah, I'd see him like twice a year, you know. And my father has an incredible story. He passed away now too, but he had an incredible story. My father was a heroin addict when he was a kid in the I guess it'd be the 50s, 40s and late in the 50s in the 50s. And he was one of the original people. He did 11 years on Rikers Island before I was born, before I was born. He was one of the original people they tested methadone on in this country when they brought it here. He was one of the guinea pigs. There's books written about him, and so when he got out of prison, he was clean and sober because of methadone. It worked for him and didn't work for everybody. And so he worked at a lumber yard. My mother came in to buy lumber. And he took her phone number, he called her, and she was like a kind of a goody two shoes. So it was very funny that she ended up with my dad. But he wasn't around much, and it was disappointing, of course. He ended up getting he went from being a grammar school dropout to getting his master's and his doctorate in social work, and do you remember Just Say No campaign with Nancy Reagan?
Of course, yeah.
My father helped her develop that. And so he went on from this like street guy to this huge presence, and meanwhile I never saw him. So
And
I
he
was
must
it
have
was
known what was going on with you.
well, he actually made the mistake once. He gave me an NA book and he said, "Call me, I'll be your sponsor." I'm like, "Sponsor? You're the reason I'm here."
Ah,
So it was a whole thing. I had a big resentment, obviously. Later in life, we not only did we make up, when he died, he was my best friend. So it worked out great, and as a man now, it's like you one day you wake up and see your parents as people, and you go, "Oh, I get it now. You were
right.
doing the best you could. That's what you were doing. That's what you had in front of you." And as a guy with children, you always hope that one day the light bulb goes off and they go, "Oh, he's just a guy." I know he's my dad, but. So anyway, so I was sober for 2 years and 10 months. It really helped. So here I am at 18. I was sober about 13 months, and I got off probation on my birthday, January 2nd. So January 3rd, I flew to San Diego from New Jersey, and I looked at a map and it was literally the furthest I can go without falling in the ocean. So I'm like, I'm getting the hell out of New Jersey, because, everybody was my problem except for me. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So geographic at its best. So I flew to San Diego and I had a hefty bag of clothes. I didn't even have my own suitcase. I just put it in a hefty bag. And I flew there.
So wait, you
And
didn't retain any of your money
what would happen? No, I lost all that. Yeah, no, I lost all that.
and the
But
Corvette?
the Corvette, here's what happened with the Corvette. The Corvette got stolen, and I say that with air quotes. And the insurance money was very helpful to me because that's what I went to San Diego with.
Okay.
So I had a few peppers in my pocket, as I
You just
like to.
couldn't afford any like
I
carry-on
didn't
suitcases.
I didn't even know you should have a suitcase. It
Right.
wasn't about
Okay.
affording it. I was like, I put it in a bag and we go. I
Okay.
did. You're gonna laugh, but I had this hefty bag of clothes, but I also had a brand new VCR. My friend's father was selling them off a truck, and I got a great deal just when I was leaving town. So I'm like, I show up with a hefty bag of clothes and this VCR, and I'm in San Diego alone. I'm like, where do I go? So I end up down at the beach, Ocean Beach, and I meet these homeless guys who were amazing guys, and they were some of them were sober, clean and sober, and I end up I would leave my stuff with them during the day, and then and they would watch my stuff, and when I'd get back at night, I would like buy them food or whatever. It was really really a cool thing we had worked out, and they were really really special guys. And so anyway, at 2 years and 10 months sober, at age 20, I decided there's no way I'm an alcoholic. This is ridiculous, you know.
Of course.
And come on, I'm like.
You're
I'm
20.
I'm 20 with almost 3 years of sobriety. That's insane. So
You could
I wake up,
totally stop if you want to.
well, here's what happens. I wake up one day and I say to my friend Jack Zito, I say, Jackie, I'm going to drink today. He said, no, you're not. Don't be an idiot. I'm like, no, no. And I goof around a little bit here and there. So he didn't really take me seriously. And I was like, I'm going to drink today. So I went and bought a six pack of this St. Pauli's Girl, really nice beer, because that's not the beer I drank growing up. I was, lucky to have old Milwaukee's best. So I buy this six pack and I'm with Jack and I start to drink. I start to drink and he's chasing me down the street and I'm chugging the beer while he's chasing me. And so not only did I throw away 2 years and 10 months of continuous sobriety, and I was going to meetings and everything, and I just had shifted something in my brain. I had decided that it didn't matter. I wasn't listening. So I drink early in the day, and literally that night in San Diego, where I did not know anyone who got high or drank, I was smoking crack down at Skid Row with like total homeless strangers the same night. I was like a caged animal. I was like, oh my God, maybe I am an alcoholic or a drug addict. Maybe I have that addictive gene, whatever. And so I lasted 10 months and ended up in rehab again and in San Diego. And then September 3rd, 1990 was Labor Day, and it was crazy. So I had this apartment in San Diego, and I hadn't paid the rent in a while, and so they padlocked it. The problem was I was inside, and they didn't know. So now I'm padlocked inside this apartment alone, just drinking and getting high by myself
Oh,
for a
wow.
week. And so all of a sudden, because I had a bunch of sobriety brothers who we all lived in the same big building in Pacific Beach. There was like, 30 of us in this 1,000 unit building. And so all my sobriety brothers would come by and knock on the window. You ready? You ready? I'd be like, nah, get out of here. And then one day my friend Joey comes over and he says, I bought you a bottle of Yukon Jack whiskey. And he was sober. I go, Joey, that's amazing. You're the only one who understands. Thank you. And he goes, I bought you a bottle. And I didn't really like whiskey. It wasn't my thing. I liked vodka and beer, and I didn't really like I don't know, it wasn't my thing. But I drank anything. I certainly wasn't I
You're
didn't have
padlocked in an apartment. You're like, I'll take it. It's alcohol.
I didn't have many standards at that point about my alcohol.
Uh-huh.
So all of a sudden Joey hands me this whiskey. He comes in through the window. We break the window. He comes in. I'm drinking. He's like, drink a little more. Drink some more. Come on, kid. Called me Spike. Everybody called me Spike at that time. Spike, drink a little more. Drink a little more. And so, literally within 15 minutes, I drank a pint of this Yukon Jack, a quart. It was a quart, and I came to because I was gone. I came to at an AA picnic, Labor Day, sitting in a chair, crying, a wreck, no shirt, no shoes, no socks. And my sponsor at that time came up to me and he's like, so are you humbled now? Because there were like hundreds of people going, we love you, we love you. I'm like, you don't love me, you don't know me, blah, blah. And I was at this AA picnic and he made me sit there in front of everybody for the whole day.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, he goes, you ready now? I was like, yeah. And he took me to this 7-day program in San Diego, and I haven't had a drink, drug, or a cigarette in 34 years, which is
That's
wild.
crazy. So from there,
Uh-huh.
from that day, what do you think it was? Did you just have that psychic change right away? Or, I mean,
Well, the first time
getting
I got
sober for a lot of people isn't really the hard part, right? But yet you've stayed sober for 34 years. How?
Well, it's been an interesting journey because, I've had so many ups and downs in sobriety. I did not drink, I did not get high, I did not smoke cigarettes. Um, but I put my bookies, two kids through college. I always had two or three girlfriends. In other
Yeah,
words, I buy a bag of candy, I eat the whole candy, the whole bag within like a minute.
right, right.
So I just basically acted out in other ways. Not always. I mean, there were periods where I had pretty good sobriety, and then there were times I was like, just get a case of the fuckets and just do whatever, you know. But I never drank, which kind of scares me when people say that in the program. Sometimes they go, "Well, as long as you don't drink." I mean, I get the sentiment of it, but 7 years ago, I hit an emotional and spiritual bottom at 27 years of sobriety, that have never known, even trying to get rid of alcohol and drugs. So for about a decade, I was really checked out and just doing my own thing and white knuckling, and I wasn't always making great choices and all that. And so at 27 years, and I come to learn and find out in sobriety that there are lots of people like you hit the 20-year mark, and it's so easy to get complacent and move on with your life and forget all the things that got you that great sobriety. And so it was wild. I mean, I was at the end of my rope, and I don't say that lightly, 7 years ago. And so I had to, I had the gift of desperation in a way that I had never, ever known.
What do you,
And
can
that
you
was
just get, can you
27.
tell me a little bit more about being at the end of your rope? Were you just feeling depressed and were you feeling like nothing in my life is going well? Was it, you know what I mean? Was it biochemical that not going well, or were you just, like, I want to know what that,
I was just making choices, I mean, listen, I was making some decisions and choices in my life that were probably that weren't beneficial to me and to many others. And so I was a workaholic, extreme workaholic. And I still have elements of that because, the hard part with me being in showbiz is like it's also my hobby and I also love doing it. So there's the trap, you know. But I found myself in a situation where I'm doing a national tour of this one-man show that I do, the Lenny Bruce show. And I'm traveling around the country, and I'm 9 months in New York, commuting every week to see my 11-year-old daughter, who's now 17. And then my marriage, wasn't doing great, and then I'm in Chicago for 6 months, commuting. And so it just got to the point where I was overwhelmed with just I was just crippled with unhappiness, quite honestly. I felt very disconnected from everybody and everything. And so eventually it got really bad, and I found a new sponsor, and I had a gift of desperation that I had never known before. They talk about God and a higher power often in the program, and I know that's a tricky thing. And being raised a Catholic, an altar boy, and did all this stuff, that was always kind of like, and I don't mean to offend any Catholics who are listening, but it's that was like equivalent to Santa Claus to me. I had no spiritual connection. Lenny Bruce has a great quote. He said in the 60s, which got him in a lot of trouble. He said, every day people are leaving the church and finding God. And so, I had a weird relationship with all that. I mean,
yeah,
nothing, you understand.
yes.
So I realized I just had no spiritual connection to anything, even though I maybe thought I did. And my relationships around me were kind of falling apart because of my lack of participation. And so, here I am at 27 years, clean and sober, and I struggled quite a bit. And I ended up, the last 7 years of my sobriety have been the best I've ever had. I mean, the whole thing changed, and it's been wild because I've never been happier than I
How
am
did
right
it
now.
change?
I just became willing in a way that was like life or death, as opposed to like, because I got sober so young that I didn't have the gift of desperation then with so many years of like, when I got sober, at first I was a nudge from the judge. That was the first time. And then I had to stay sober for a year, and I was like, I like this life. And then, I went back and I was desperate, and I certainly convinced myself quickly that I was an addict quickly, but I stayed, messing around for another 10 months or so. And then I just felt like, you know, being, I just felt like all those years when people put so much stress and weight on themselves trying to put down alcohol and drugs, I got it so young that I felt like I still my brain wasn't even formed at 20. So I was still like searching and acting out and doing things that potentially weren't great for me. And you know what I mean?
I
And so,
do.
yeah. So,
I also
so that-
feel like if I may add to that, I think a lot of people get that feeling because when I first got sober, even though I didn't think I was as willing as I was, looking back, I was very willing. In my mind, I was very rebellious and like, I don't want to do all this writing and this is ridiculous. And I'm
Mhm.
not a religious person. So I push aside this whole God thing. Like I argued everything in my head, but I still showed up, you know. But in my mind, I wanted to be sober ever so slightly more than I wanted to drink. And you know, I didn't get sober till I was 42, so I'd had a lot of years of experimenting with quitting on my own and moderating and all the things. I'd proven to myself I couldn't do it. So I knew I had to do something. And this was the only thing, you know, for me, 12 step was the only thing that was free, easy to go, easy to do. I wasn't going to like go to rehab for me. But my point is, I had that connection because I was involved and I was going to the same meetings and I was seeing the same people. But a few years into it, I really got disconnected as well. And it's that thing, it's always a mystery because I'm like, well, I don't drink, I'm not doing anything. Uh, but yet I feel sad and irritable and discontent and
Yeah.
not good. And to myself, I was like, I don't feel any better than I did like right before I quit drinking. What's wrong? And what was wrong was that I wasn't really, I'd stopped going to meetings, or any regular meetings. It was like I was a drop in, you know, I was like, well, I
It
like
was
this.
more of a social. It was social.
Yeah, and I
You
just
know.
wasn't doing anything. And for me, getting a new sponsor and I sort of recommitted myself, even though I didn't feel like it.
Mhm.
And I got back this that same old feeling, the good feeling of like, I feel connected again.
Well,
But it
the
still goes
change.
back and forth for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a mode right now where I'm like, I don't like anybody. Uh,
Yeah. It's so funny. Me either. So that's perfect. Um, the change is, in my humble opinion, is in the book and the steps. The change is not the meetings. The meetings, and I didn't know this for 27 years. I mean, I knew it, but because I explained to you, I dropped out of school in eighth grade. I wasn't a student. I look back on my life and I never once remember ever being held accountable for like a piece of homework. Nobody ever said, "Did you do your homework?" Nobody ever asked me that. So
right.
I don't know what to do. You know, I don't do homework. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So when I come into the program, suddenly they're like, "You have to do this." And I'm like, I don't like I write and read. I mean, don't get me wrong. But I'm like, but I don't sit down and discipline and write. They're like, what are you talking? That's not who I am. Forget it. I'm not doing it. And so, you know, and I did versions of it. I did some of it like audio, whatever. And so what's changed in the last 7 years, why it's different now, is because I have completely changed my character and my thinking. And I did that completely through doing all the work the program suggests. So when people fail and the program gets a bad rap, 12-step program, it's usually because they didn't do the work that was see, the program doesn't ever want to scare anyone off, so they don't make it mandatory. They suggest. And suggestion for a guy like me, you suggest something to me, I'm not doing it.
Right.
So
Same.
suggest. I'm gonna suggest I go take a nap. That's what I'm gonna do. So that's not my shtick, right? So for if I didn't have the gift of desperation 7, 8 years ago, that I literally got on my knees and asked for help. And the higher power thing, here's how this happened. My sponsor said, my new sponsor said, "You have a problem with the word God?" He said, "You believe in God?" I said, "Well, I always said I did, but I don't think I do because honestly, it's like Santa Claus to me. When I talk about God, I don't feel anything. I don't know what you know." And the closest I got to any kind of spiritual life in a real way, my mother died when I was 24 and she was 53. And I thought a couple of years sober. I was like, well, I promised her I'd stay sober, you know? And so when she died, I was like, okay, I knew her. She was my favorite person. Maybe there's some spiritual connection there. Like I could think about her when I'm praying or whatever. So that was my closest attempt at like a real spiritual, and it worked at times. But then what happened was my sponsor said, "Do you believe in God?" I said, "I guess not." He said, "Do you have a problem with the word God?" I said, "No, I don't care. It's cool. Whatever, you know." He goes, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to invite God everywhere you go. Not the guy on the cross and Jesus. I don't need you to think about any of that. I just want you to invite God wherever you go." So literally, I was so desperate 7 years ago, I would say, "God, I'm going to make a sandwich. You want to come? God, I'm going to watch the game. You want to come? God, I need to use the bathroom. You want to come with me? God, let's take a walk. God, do you just want to hang out with me? God, you want to do this? You want to do that?" And literally all day long, Stephanie, like all day. "God, I'm hungry. God, you want to eat something? God, I'm going to call my brother. You want to call him with me? God, you want to, God, you want to, all day, every day for a month." And what happened was something shifted in me. I suddenly felt less alone. And so when people ask me, "What is God to me?" I explain it this way. I say, I never want anyone to misunderstand this statement by thinking that I think I'm God. But I do think God is my greatest self. It's my instinctual greatest self. When I'm living when I'm kind, when I'm patient, when I'm living in humility, love, when I'm gentle, that's me walking in God's grace. That's how I see it. So I now have a relationship with my greatest self that sometimes I abandon when I want to be cranky and moody. When I don't feel like it, I'll put them on the shelf for half a day, you know. I try not to give up full days anymore. Those days are behind me,
You don't
you know.
invite him everywhere. And you say, God,
Yeah, because I
I'm
like
going to
to.
go argue with somebody. You want to stay home?
Yeah, you stay home. I'm going to go argue with that person, tell them why I'm right. Because, there's something that feels good about that too, even though it's, clearly unhealthy. So suddenly I built this relationship with this higher power that like was really something tangible because I felt the difference. Suddenly I didn't have to, sleep with the TV on, if you know what I mean. I was like, okay to just sit with myself. And, it came and went. It wasn't a constant feeling, but it's something that I began to rely on, this friendship I'm like a pal. I had a pal with me all the time. And so that to me made sense. And so my sponsor said, okay, and I called myself out. I said to my sponsor, "Look, I'm gonna probably give you some bullshit and say, hey, my hands hurt. When I was a kid, I broke both my hands. I can't really write that long. Don't listen to any of it. I'm telling you right now. Don't tell me I could do this audio. Tell me what you need me to do. And whenever I ask you to not do it, you have to say no to me because I know who I am." So he said, okay. So we started to write. He goes, "Well, write down some names." We started to do the inventory. And I go, "I got no names. I'm 27 years sober. I'm not mad at anybody. I got no problems with anybody." He goes, "Just start writing them down." I had 250 names.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't realize at 27 years sober how angry I was and how disappointed I was and how sad I was with and how many problems I had with a lot of people that I would have never been able to vocalize that. I didn't know it. So I do this. So then he says, "Okay, so now you have this relationship with this higher power. You've written down the names. Let's inventory it." And then he says, "We're going to write a little prayer for those people." And it's something how like what you want for yourself, some sort of like, I want for you what I want for myself. And then what we're going to do is you're going to get on your knees and you're going to pray for each one of those people individually. You're going to say their name and you're going to say the prayer. And you're going to do this 14 straight days. And if you don't do it one day, you start over. And so now I'm in Chicago, living at the top of this hotel, doing this very successful show. And I'm spending half my afternoons on my knees because that's how long it took. And so first day, I'm like, this, you know, and then suddenly, like, by day 3 or 4, my heart started to change for these people. And suddenly by day 8, I'm like, I hope they're doing okay. It shifted how I felt about them. And by day 14, I was really, most of them, there's one or two I had a hard time really, if I'm being honest, I am Italian. So, I have resentments from kindergarten still, that's the way it works. But,
Hmm.
there's a couple of people I'm, not really. you know, incredibly rooting for. But mostly it started to shift the way I felt. And I started to understand the power of prayer for me, of like praying for somebody and what that does for me in my heart and what that might do for them. I believe, maybe it's changing them in some way. And so it was a pretty wild experience. And I've been on that journey now the last 7 years, and I feel really, and it's still, always working on it and writing and inventorying and making amends when it's applicable. And, uh, but I do suffer from the human condition. So there are times it's hard to do this.
Right. And do
But,
you still have a relationship with your brother? You said you
oh,
do,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we're very close. Yeah, my brother Jimmy, he lives in New Jersey. He's a cool guy. So yeah, we're really close pals. And
Does he still not drink?
yeah, I don't know. He might have a beer once in a while. It's not even in his world.
Right,
It's not
right.
even in his world. So,
Well, it's just interesting because you guys are biological brothers and your father had a heroin problem.
well, we're actually not. He was adopted before I was born.
Oh, okay.
So, but we don't consider, I mean, he's my brother. That's the way
Yeah,
it
of
is.
course. But
Yeah.
but that's interesting
Yeah.
biologically.
Yeah.
I find it interesting the way that addiction works in families and not as a way to not take responsibility, but just as an interesting fact of like, I used to feel like, I don't know why I can't stop drinking when I don't see it in my family. So my mother, stepfather, brother, sister don't have any, did never had any issues. My mother and stepfather would have like wine at dinner, couple glasses, and then there were times when they were like being on a health kick and then they just didn't drink at all, or the same
Right,
thing with
right.
dessert. I remember very clearly that my mother at one point decided she wanted to like lose some weight, so they just cut out dessert after dinner, and that was so insane to me and horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was only later when I quit drinking, I think, that I was like, oh, my father was a pain pill addict like his whole life. I mean, he's a full on addict. He never acknowledged it or tried to get sober. So, but toward the end of me dealing with him, oh my God, there was so much, and it was worse than I even knew. But there was doctor shopping, and there was like going to the hospital and telling them that he has a horrible headache and wanting an injection of, I mean, there's just the most drug seeking behavior. And it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
my father, not the same.
Yeah.
That father is not my brother and sister's biological father, right? My
Yeah.
stepfather is. So here I always thought like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why am I like the black sheep? You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
different than this whole little nuclear family over here. They don't get me. I, I'm a pig. I can't stop eating. I can't stop drinking. I can't. And here's all these people that have full control, and it's just like something's really wrong with me. And it
Yeah.
and there was and there is, but I'm just saying, oh, it's
No,
interesting
it's
when I go,
interesting.
oh, my
Yeah.
father handed that
But
down.
not everybody's, I hear that loud and clear. And there are certainly families that I know that that is the case, how you're explaining it. And there are also families that like, brothers grew up in the same household and one is an alcoholic and one's not. So I don't know if it's if like, if it's an absolute,
Oh,
but it's certainly,
definitely not.
but it's interesting how you're saying it because it makes me think like looking at now my family, it's like, you know, eh, I always felt like the black sheep as well. And actually looking back at it, maybe my brother was because my family, the nucleus was all, we had the same genes and he didn't. It's an interesting thing to consider. It's
It's
really,
definitely not a thing that I would use as like, well, I'm an alcoholic because my father was a drug addict. That's
right,
that's
right.
that's not it, but it's interesting to realize what
Yeah,
was wrong with him was also wrong with me, which is also wrong with a lot of people. And
yeah.
it didn't make sense to me because what I saw, because I wasn't raised by my father. So what I saw made me feel really different. And I wasn't around people. I was around people that drank. I didn't think other people had the thing though that I have. It really wasn't until I started going to meetings that I was like, Oh, that's where all the people are that have this thing.
It's It's so funny you say that because I often, when I share, I often say, I one day I was blacked out and I woke up and I was looking for you guys. And then I walked into me, I go, here they are. Here's everybody. This is where you guys went. So it's funny you say that because I always think that, like, I'm like, where'd everybody go? And then I came in the room and there we are. So we're
Yeah.
very lucky, and I also realize that alcohol is but a symptom. Drugs are but a symptom. I could go ahead and act out in a million different ways. And, chasing my own tail, filling that what I now understand to be a God-sized hole in my belly with whatever makes me feel good. And I
Well,
use the
tell
word
me,
God no
yeah,
fun, but
tell me
yeah.
about, you're this sober guy, and tell me
Uh,
about starting to do the Bill W. Dr. Bob show, which is a huge hit. You direct
Thanks.
it. You're
hmm
what you're in it. Your wife's in it. And you've been doing this for many years, right?
Yeah, I've done probably 9 productions over the last 20 years. And I've always been the director, but now I play Bill Wilson, and my wife plays Lois Wilson, which is pretty amazing. Um, and it's really cool. Like I feel really grateful I get to do it. It was interesting when I first decided to do the play. It came to me before I came to California. Somebody offered me to be in the play in New Jersey. And as a sober guy, of course, I wanted to, but I couldn't do it for some reason. But I always kept the play. And I was like, oh, someday I'm going to do this play. And so when I finally put it on, I struggled with it originally because, with the principles and of AA and, not making any money on AA, and you don't want to make money on the program. So I was struggling with that. So I talked to my sponsor at the time. I was like, so I don't know what to do. And so then we came up with the idea that I'll charge just enough so we can do the play. You understand? And so I was like,
Right.
I'm not actually making any money on it. And then what happened was I went from should I do this play to once I got hundreds and hundreds of letters and testimonials and people waiting after the show and saying I couldn't stay sober, but because of the play, now I can. It's like the big book coming to life in such a simple way. It's a pop-up book. Greatest meeting I've ever been to. It's with Bill and Bob, blah, blah, blah. And so because of the reaction, I went like from should I do it to it's now my responsibility. And so I've completely changed my mind. And what I love about it is it's a successful show because people want to see it. It's also just a good theater piece. So I'd say, 30% of our audience, or 70%, I should say, is probably 12 steppers of every kind. And then 30-40% of people are just theater goers who want to see this cool piece of history and how these two men changed the world.
It's a great story.
No, it's incredible how it came together. It's pretty wild. And it's still, every time I do it, I'm just like, I can't believe that these series of events, this chance meeting changed the world. And so I'm very grateful that because people want to see and because we sell tickets, that the two things I love the most are sobriety and theater, that they help each other. It's kind of like we have the theater to be able to do this show, and this show helps us pay the rent at the theater. And so the two things that I care the most about, we get to nurture together. And so I no longer worry about that. In fact, I've now secured the rights solely in the world. I'm the
Oh,
only one who has
wow.
rights to the show now, and we're setting up a national tour as we speak. We just played Oregon, and it went great. And I'm playing Skokie, Illinois, at the end of May for 2 weeks. 8 performances in Skokie, and we've got lots of other great cities and conversations happening. And
And you have a run now or coming
yeah,
up,
we're
right?
open currently. We're right now we're extended through May.
Okay.
And we were only running through, originally we opened February 15th, I think, and we were just going to run a few weeks, but now we're extended through May.
This is in Los
So
Angeles.
yeah, in LA. And anytime we do the show, you just go to Bill W. and Dr. Bob on
Okay.
stage.com, and then that's where we list every show. But right now, LA's open and Skokie, Illinois is available as well. They're on sale. And
If you just Google Bill W, you're gonna get a lot of like ads. You're gonna get a lot of like, are
that's
you an
true.
alcoholic? Are you gonna get a lot of ads for
That's funny.
rehabs? You might get help though.
Yeah, no, it's probably a good idea. And then if you if you're looking for the play, type in Bill W. and Dr. Bob, the play, or on stage.
On
That's the key.
stage.
But I hear you, and that's very funny. But it's such an honor to do it. You meet Bill, Bob, and then the wives, Lois and Anne, and then you see the beginning of Al-Anon as well. You see the birth of Al-Anon in the play. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and people come back a dozen times more, and you hear them in the audience. This is my 12th time, 15th time. I just had a guy the other day buy out the whole theater for his sponsor for his sponsor's birthday.
Wow.
Pretty magical. Yeah, it's really, and what we do is something that I normally wouldn't do as a theater nerd is, you go backstage, you get dressed, you come out, you say hello to a few people, whoever's still there. But with this play, I understand the importance of the connection between the audience and the show. And so as soon as we take our bow, we go right out front and we greet everybody. And the magic and the energy. And some people in the show are sober and some aren't. That's obviously for them to discuss.
Right.
Not, but and I always, in the curtain call, I always say, I'm Ronnie and I am an alcoholic. And people love it. They go nuts. The guy playing Bill is also a drunk. And
Uh-huh.
it's really great. It's really great. Raquel just saw it for the first time a few weeks ago. And she was like, I get it now. Like, it was really, I think, informative. And I think she got it. So
Oh, that's so cool.
it was cool. Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't also bring up another big thing that you've been doing for a long time, which is I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce, where you play Lenny Bruce and Joe Mantegna directs you in
That
that.
is
And
correct.
you've been doing that for like what, over 10 years?
I've been doing my show. I think I'm coming up on 8 years for this production, but I played Lenny in another show as well. So my relationship with Lenny at this point goes back 20 years. But this play that I wrote and Joe Mantegna directed is, yeah, it's really cool. We just played La Mirada a couple of weeks ago.
Wow, that's
Beautiful.
a big theater.
Yeah, it was 1,250 seats and it was
Wow.
amazing. And at the end of June, I'm playing Olympia, Washington. It's 1,000 seats or 1,200 seats. And so these are the kind of theaters I've been playing around the country now. And
And that's a one-man show.
just me, and 90-minute monologue. It's pretty wild. I hope you get to see it because
I
it's
want to
really,
see it.
yeah, yeah. I may open it in LA again. Every time I feel like I'm not doing it for a while, I'll do like a little warm up in LA just to get to do it, a little bit. But it's a beautiful show, and Lenny was an important person. And if you care about comedy or free speech or First Amendment, Lenny's the guy who fought and ultimately died for that. And he was he's like a martyr. He was a sacrificial lamb. Obviously directly handed the baton to Carlin and Richard Pryor and those guys, all the way down to Chappelle and whatever comedian you like now, Lenny influenced. And he was an addict and overdosed at 40. And sadly, he never found recovery. So I find that interesting. I do both of these shows.
Yeah.
Lenny never found recovery. Bill obviously did. And so it's interesting to have being able to access both of those sides of me for both of these performances.
Well, this has been such a good conversation. I absolutely loved it. Is there anything you've talked about where to find the show? And we'll look out for I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. But I think you need to beef up your Instagram a little bit. So why don't you shout out your Instagram?
Yeah, I'm not really good at that, but I'll shout it out. It's just my name, Ronnie Marmo, and you'll find me on the Insta, as the kids call it.
Uh-huh.
And I wish I was a little better at that. I'm just not. Whoever follows me, it's kind of, I think, that by chance. I don't know. So, and then also on the Facebook there, I got my name and the page, and the Bill W. And Dr. Bob really could use support. It's a brand new Instagram. We just made it, rather than doing
Oh,
the usual
yeah.
Theater
Tell us.
68, we now because everything was always through Theater 68, my company. But now we thought Bill W. and Dr. Bob on stage is the Instagram. And then I am Lenny Bruce is the Lenny Instagram and social media. So
Fantastic.
yeah, it's cool. So, it'd be great if you follow me and I'll try to keep you amused. I don't know.
Okay. Great conversation. Thank you, Ronnie. Talk to
Thank
you
you.
guys next week. Bye.
Feeling like life is Good life.